Shalom. In this video on Torah Eretz Yisrael, we're going to be discussing the Gvulot Eretz Yisrael, the borders of Eretz Yisrael. And this is a confusing sugya, a confusing topic, because there seems to be a number of contradictions when it comes to the borders of Israel. So let's examine them and go through them. We're going to have the sources behind us here, and we're going to be looking at. We'll see. I think we're just going to stick to the Torah here, and not the let's say the modern day issues. But let's look at the first question that we have is why do the borders of Eretz Yisrael need to be set? Why are the borders important? And there's a number of answers why borders are important all over the world. It's a matter of safety of demarcating your nation. You don't really have a country if you don't have set borders. What makes your country not somebody else's country? Where's the line? Literally, where's the line? Another issue that you have when it comes to Eretz Yisrael is that we have a lot of halachos that apply in Eretz Yisrael that don't apply in other lands. So we have to know if those laws, the mitzvos hatzilos ba'aretz, the mitzvos that are dependent on the land, apply in that area or not. So, for instance, Shemitah, the sabbatical year, or tithing your fruit, where does it apply and where does it not apply? Okay, now. Um, we have something interesting here, which is that we're going to look. If you look at yeah, asking these questions here, is there a difference between Eretz Yisrael that requires the mitzvahs and Eretz Yisrael for a different reason? And you have different issues again, like we're bringing up, and Kedushas Eretz Yisrael that we've talked about in the last couple of shiurim. Do the borders demarcate the places where there is Kedushas Yisrael? We saw that was a big issue in our shiur on Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. If you haven't seen it, then you should go back and look at it to see how we understand where the sanctity of Eretz Yisrael is. Now, one of the issues that we have is here we see that we're going to find different maps of what Eretz Yisrael is. This is an odd-shaped map of Israel. It's the purple lines above us here, so or here I should say. So if you look at the purple lines all the way up, where it says Israel and in Hebrew Yisrael, so you see that this map, which is the map of the lands that Hashem promised Avraham in the Bris Ben Absarim, in Bereshis, which you have the psukim over here. So or over here, sorry. So those psukim talk about Hashem giving. It says as follows. It says Bayomahu Karas Hashem es Avram Bris Limor Zarcha Nasati es Haaretz Hazos Min Nahar Mitzrayim ad Nahar Prat. Okay, so that's the borders that go really far. And if you look at this map, it's interposed on top of a modern day map. So you see that Israel takes up all the Sinai Desert, Lebanon, Syria, a great deal of Iraq, and northern Saudi Arabia. That's a map and nobody uses this map. The only time I've ever seen anyone use this map are when anti-Semites try to say this is what the Zionists are. This is their ambitions, is what we call Greater Israel, which is completely untrue, as this year will make abundantly clear. So the what it says is going on to the next pasuk. Hashem promises Avram the lands of Akini, Aknizi, Hakadmoni, Achiti, Aprizi, at Rephaim, Veta Moria, Knani, Veta Gershuni, Veta Yebusi. Okay, so all these lands, Rashi explains that at Akini, Eser Umos Yeshkan. Within these purple borders, there are 10 nations. Lo nasan lahem ela shiva goyim, and Hashem only gave to Avram to Bnei Israel only gave 7 of the nation's lands at first when they came into Eretz Yisrael. The rest, and that's the whole this whole more land and bigger area, that's only going to happen in the future. Okay, so this is the borders of Eretz Yisrael. It would seem that Hashem told Avram, this is the land that your children are going to get. Now, this map we have here, this comes from a Bamidbar, and this is Hashem telling Moshe the borders of Israel. And you see the borders of Israel here are both maps are much different than today's modern day state of Israel, but this map is much smaller a land of Eretz Yisrael than this map, right? So so here you have, like we have, we try to always solve contradictions. Mostly contradictions are two statements of the same person that contradict each other, or the same statement of, let's say, two different statements in the Talmud that contradict each other. Here we have two maps that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave, that God Himself gave, that seem to be contradicting each other. In which case, you have to ask the question of, okay, so which map is the map of Eretz Yisrael, and how could Hashem seemingly contradict Himself? Obviously, Hashem can't contradict Himself because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is perfect. He's not going to. He can't. He's not going to, and can't make a mistake. Okay, so. If we look, the pasuk in Dvarim says, "Ki yarchiv Hashem alkachas gvucha," when Hashem extends your borders, kasher diber lach, as He said to you. Okay, so the Ramban explains, "Ki yachris Hashem alkachas lagoyim asher Hashem alkacha nosin lecha tzartzam." The Haim Shiva Hagoyim Shiaskir B'chol Makom. So this is referring to, and what the Ramban is referring to, is this map. It belongs to the seven nations. Okay, Haim Shiva Goyim Shiaskir B'chol Makom. So when Bnei Israel and Yoshua comes into Eretz Yisrael, so Hashem had already told them that what you're going to do is you're going to take the land of these seven nations. The Az Nadil Shal Sharm, and then one of the requirements is you're going to set aside three cities of refuge, meaning three Ari Miklat. V'cheinas Yeshua, that's what happened. V'achar kach amar ki yarchiv Hashem el kachas gvucha kasher nishba avsach. And then Hashem says that at some point I'm going to extend your borders as I promised your father. V'zeh yirmos lasara Amen. And that's referencing the 10 nations lands that were given to Abraham, that were promised to Abraham. Okay. It seems like the difference, and this doesn't solve our contradiction, but the difference between the two maps is the difference of three different nations. One map only has seven nations lands that were given. That's the one in Bamidbar. This is only seven nations, and this map has 10 nations worth of land. So this one has an extra three nations to it, which again begs the question of how can we have different maps? Okay. So now, which then asks the question of, we saw a lot of references as to that in the future, the land will expand, right? They will have expanding borders. So why would the land change? And as if this is if this is Eretz Yisrael, this is Eretz Yisrael, right? Why would Eretz Yisrael expand? What's the value in this? Well, conceptually, how do we understand changing borders? Okay, so where it said the pasuk says like this: "V'im yarchim Hashem el kachas gvucha." Right, this is going on again on the theme of Hashem expanding your borders. Kasher nishba lavosecha, like Hashem promised your forefathers. V'nasan lechas kol aretz asher diber laseis lavosecha. Right, then he gives you the land that he promised your forefathers. Ki tishmor es kol mitzvahs also, because you observe all these mitzvos. Lasosa asher nochi mitzavcha hayom liavas Hashem el kacha v'lechas b'drachav kol yamim. Right? So then you're going to keep these mitzvos, and you're going to love Hashem. So the Ramban connects these two psukim. Look at the Ramban here. I'm going to see if I can slide over here. It says, Ki tishmor, kasher tagia zechuscha, shetishmor kol mitzvah, when you get to the point where you merit to keep all the mitzvos, li'avas Hashem, to love Hashem, right? This is the Ramban explaining our psukim. Ava shlema kayemes liolam. It's a love of God that is complete and lasts forever. Shia galui lefanav, so it's revealed in front of God. What is this like great love? That the love of God is so strong that it's revealed in front of Hashem. Shlo techta ol liolam, that you will never sin again forever. That's the level that we're talking about here. That's when we're going to get to it. We're going to get to this level when we are so perfected, when we've done so well that that Hashem could say, I'm confident these people are never going to sin again. Right? This is Hashem who knows the future. So we're really never going to sin again. That's when this happens. Only then, when we have this complete love of God, the love of God complete as defined by never sinning again. As yarchiv es gvucha v'yitelecha kol amim. That's when Hashem is going to expand your borders and give you all the nations, all 10 nations' lands. Okay, so that's when this happens. It seems to be that first we get the seven nations lands, right? So that's what we conquer ourselves, and we bring that in. Hashem gives us that under Yoshua, and then we then work on ourselves and try to perfect ourselves. And when Hashem is confident that the Jewish people are never going to sin again, then Hashem expands our borders to the 10. And that sounds very nice, but the question is why is it that we are rewarded with an expansion of land? And that's what does land have to do with keeping mitzvahs? But what we see is that a mode of reward and punishment. We find this. We're looking at this pasuk here. Al titma'u b'chol elah, ki b'chol elah titma'u hagayim asher ani mashalech b'fnechem. Hashem warns the Jewish people, don't take after the influences of the people that live, the Canaanim that live, the seven nations that live in the land. Because if you do, the land will reject you and eject you. That the land does not tolerate this level of sinning. So if you're going to follow this bad path, you're going to end up having bad things happen to you. But the inverse is also true, right? We say in Shema, "V'haya im shama tishmo mitzvosai asher anochi mitzavcha eschem hayom, mitzav eschem hayom le'avas Hashem Elokechem u'avda b'chol lavchem v'chol nafshchem." So if we serve God with all our hearts and all our souls, then what's the reward? The reward is nasati mitar tzechem bito yorel malkosh, right? So that we the land produces enough satiation for us to be able to thrive, not just survive, but to thrive. You'll have enough food for your animals as well. So, and then Hashem goes on to say, though, but if you do, right, go sartem vavatem elohim acherim v'yishtach v'yisalem, if you get into idolatry and follow the influence of these other nations, so then what's going to end up happening is bad things are going to happen to you, and the charaf Hashem, the rain won't come in its time, and then you're going to lose the land. Hashem can reward and punish through different methods, but Hashem doesn't reward and punish in all methods. Okay, it's not, and not Hashem doesn't punish in all different ways. So there's different ways that Hashem chooses to reward and punish people. So, for instance, like Hashem doesn't reward and punish, and just use an extreme example by giving people free clothing. Right? You never see if you do the mitzvahs, you'll get free clothing, right? That's not a method of reward that Hashem gives out. But so we have to figure out, where does Hashem give reward and where does Hashem not give reward, right? Or where does Hashem punish? So it seems from here that one of the areas, one of the methods or the vehicles that Hashem uses as for reward and punishment is Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is a place where Hashem uses it as a vehicle of reward and punishment, and therefore you have a possibility of the land being tied into the Bnei Israel's actions, whether they're doing good actions or they're acting in a poor way. That is going to have ramifications, not in, okay, like we said, our extreme example, free clothing, but it does have in Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, we see that the two different borders of Eretz Yisrael are actually fluid. And the borders of Eretz Yisrael are always fluid. It's not just those two maps that we saw, but it could be losses of small amounts of land or large amounts of land. The definition of the borders reflect how strong or weak Bnei Israel's relationship with Hashem is, as seen by observing the Torah. If Bnei Israel has a strong relationship with Hashem, so then they will have greater land and more success on the land. If they have a weaker relationship with Hashem, then they will have a weaker relationship with Hashem and less land. A weaker success on the land, and they'll have less land. So the land, what we're learning here is that the borders of Eretz Yisrael are fluid. There's no such thing as an objective Eretz Yisrael. This is what Eretz Yisrael is. We simply draw on the map. That's not how Eretz Yisrael is defined. The Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to all other lands, is defined by one's relationship with Hashem. Or Bnei Israel's relationship with Hashem. And the Eretz Yisrael becomes a vehicle for the Jewish people's relationship with Hashem. It's an absolutely fascinating idea, if one thinks about it, that you can, right? Because in the beginning we asked the question, what do we need borders for? And we answered that borders are essential for how society operates, how nations know the difference between their land and somebody else's land. So you'd think that if we had a land, then one of the most important things we'd have in this land is a set borders. But that does not seem to be true at all. The borders of Eretz Yisrael are not set; they're fluid. One day, hopefully, we'll be zocha, will merit serving God in the proper way in Ava Shlema, where Hashem could testify that we're never going to sin again, and then we will have expanded borders. But until then, our ambitions are not to expand the borders of Eretz Yisrael into greater Israel. It's to improve on ourselves to the point where we are rewarded with expanded borders. So this isn't something we're not aiming for the expanded borders. We're aiming for our personal perfection and our national perfection. Okay, that's the end of this year. Shalom.